Hello everybody, James here, Storytime with Dutch Mantell, episode 110. A fresh cigar pursed between the lips of Dutch Mantell himself there. We've also worked out that's a humidor.
Yes, it is.
Good. I'll do the quick version of the plugs because we've got plenty of news to get into this week on Storytime with Dutch Mantell. Number one, PWTs. If you want to support the show, there's many ways to do it. One of them is going to prowrestlingtees.com and click the link in the description below, buy a t-shirt for the show, and that would be nice. Facebook, it's still called Storytime with Dutch Mantell. Facebook won't let me change the name of the damn Facebook page, but it's eventually going to be the WSI Network page. It will have all exclusive Dutch Mantell videos and that kind of thing.
Wait, what do you mean you can't change the...
I tried to change it, and he went, you can't change it for 60 days. And it's like, well, I've not changed it in months and months, so...
Really?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Can you call Mark Zuckerberg and say...
I will call him up. I'll say, hey, brother, lighten the hell up. Lighten up on James. He's got a baby coming. He's stressed out like a son. And how is that pregnancy doing, by the way?
I've got a story for you of it. That we did a birthing thing, right? Anyway, okay, I'll give you the first one. Is she was wearing a t-shirt that said, let's smash the patriarchy, right?
Yeah.
And then we weren't fathers, we were no, what was it? It's we were birthing partners.
Yeah.
And also the women giving birth weren't women, they were birthing people or birthing persons or something like that. And it was like, oh, I hate this already.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, what's wrong with being a mother?
Oh, because apparently men can give birth. You know, that whole thing that they can't. You know.
Bullshit. Hell no.
Yeah.
Who believes that? The same people that believe the earth is flat?
Basically, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, morons. So we've also got merchandise as well. I've got 2 books, one on Owen Hart, one on The Rock. Dutch has 2 books as well. The story, The World According to Dutch, and what's the other one? I forgot.
Something else.
Yeah. Okay. Dutch has got 2 books as well.
Wait a minute, I forgot the name of it. It's The World
Tales from a
According
Dirt
to
Road.
Dutch.
Tales from a Dirt Road.
Tales from a Dirt Road. How did I forget that?
Well, how did I forget it? I say it every week. There we go. 2 fine books.
Very good books.
Yeah, if you want them unsigned, you go to Amazon. The links are in the description. If you want them signed, negotiate a price. Well, you can't negotiate a price. The price is fixed, but you email dirtydutchmantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. And you can also get signed diplomas there. And you can also get signed hats, I think, if you are available as well. So if you're interested in that, dirtydutchmantell with 2 L's at gmail.com. I've got a new show out with Stevie Richards. It's called The Stevie Richards Show. We've been doing very, very well. 30,000 subscribers pretty much now. We've been climbing with the subs recently, so it's doing really, really well. So thank you, everybody, for watching. If you haven't watched it or listened to it yet, please do. And if you want to email the show, mostly with your questions, I can submit to Dutch on the Tuesday Ask Dutch Anything show. It is questionsfordutch@gmail.com. And one thing that we will address is the complete technical failure that happened last week as we were recording. I just couldn't hear you anymore.
What happened? Oh, okay. Did you get that fixed?
It just fixed itself. I just turned the computer off and turned it back on, and it was fine. What had happened was, the microphone was working fine. Your setup was fine. My computer had just decided to not let me hear you anymore. So I thought the recording...
That little bastard.
Old.
I hate bastard computers.
Bastage.
No, in computer ease, it's bastard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're not bastages. Bastages is, they kind of have feelings, and you can be friends with bastages. Bastards, nah, you can't be friends with them.
Well, it's fighting me now. We're going to fall out, this computer, me and it, one of these days. But as I said at the beginning, we've got a ton of news to get into. And if there has been a passing in wrestling, that we always sort of lead with that. And a day or two ago, as we record this, Leo Burke passed away at the age of 76. No cause of death has been revealed as of yet. Dave Meltzer on Twitter said, very sad to report the death of Leo Burke / Tommy Martin of the famous Cormier family of New Brunswick at the age of 76. He was a major star in Eastern Canada and an 8-time North American champion with Stampede Wrestling, very well respected in the ring. Bret Hart considered him one of the best, and Rip Rogers added Also on Twitter, just heard my friend Leo Burke passed away. He was a legend in the Maritimes. I wrestled him in Calgary for Stu Hart and all over the Maritimes in the summers of 88, 1997, and Puerto Rico in 89. His brothers Rudy K, Bobby K, and The Beast preceded him in death. So all told, he was a pretty decent star in Canada. You're going to talk about him in Puerto Rico. In the United States, he was more of just a journeyman. He didn't have as much success in the States. But what do you know of Leo Burke?
Never met him, but he preceded me in Puerto Rico. And tell you how, when I start thinking about these stories, I think about how dumb I was when I started. See, when I started in Puerto Rico, I thought it was a territory that'd been in business for 20 years or something. When I got down there, they'd only been in business like 3 years. They were still almost ready to fold up every day. But Tom Burke,
Leo Burke / Tommy Martin,
Leo Burke preceded me down there, and the story I heard about him was the whole crew, the foreign crew, and Burke was a part of that. They all got pissed off at the company because they thought that they were getting shafted on money. And I don't know if they were getting shafted or not, but it's hard to believe that a wrestling promoter would actually cheat a little bit. But so the office, what I'm saying, Carlos and Jovica, the owners, they got wind of this, and they knew where Tom and the guys were. Leo and the guys were staying. They went down there. This is a horror story out of Puerto Rico, and caught them outside, pulled a gun on them, and said if they thought about leaving, they were going to shoot them. I guess to me, I said kill them, but Leo and the guys didn't leave. Not before they had some big shows coming up that weekend, and they stayed for the shows. But as soon as those shows was over, they got their money and they hightailed it out of there. So sometimes you think about this wrestling business and in the wild days, and I never talked to Leo about it, never met him really, but I heard it was true. So, and it doesn't surprise me that would happen in Puerto Rico. So, but anyway, I heard a lot of stuff about him, really good, and everybody seemed to like him except Carlos. And I heard nothing but good things about him.
So rest in peace, Leo Burke, who died at the age of 76. We're going to get into,
and they don't know why he passed away.
Well, I'm sure someone does, but it's not been released publicly yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, 76, that's
was not really much of an age, really.
Well, probably old age got him.
Well,
he just wore out. Oh yeah. Hey, brother. Let me tell you something.
I know we're talking about wrestling here, and
yes, we are.
Wrestling very much.
We got a lot of miles and a lot of bumps, and through the years that adds up. Plus a lot of stress. You have stress making these shows. To be there on time, to do this, to do that, and after a while, you get used to it, but you don't really realize what it's doing to your body. All those, not early in my career, hell, I just rode by airports. I never got on a plane to go anywhere till I got to WWF. And then we flew, and WCW, we flew a lot then. But I think a wrestler ages his body more than ordinary people do. I'm just throwing that out there.
I think that's fair enough. We're going to move on now to more frivolous stuff, and this is Hulk Hogan at the National Republican Convention. Did you actually watch this at the time? Did you watch it after the fact?
Well, I watched it in real time. I did. And you want to know what I think about it?
Well, would you like me to give a quick... yeah, okay. Give me a minute. I'll find it.
Okay,
we're back.
Something, brother.
Quiet down. He does look good with the do-rag, you know. He doesn't look that different tonight, 30 years ago.
There was so much energy in this room. I felt maybe I was in Madison Square Garden getting ready to win another world title. Or maybe I thought the vibe was so intense. The energy was so crazy. It felt like maybe I was going to press that no-good, stinky giant over my head and slam him through the mat, brother.
Hang on. Did he say Andre the Giant? Or did he just say the Giant?
The Giant.
I was in a room full of real Americans, brother.
You love this, don't you?
At the end of the day,
oh, yeah, I do like it.
Leader up there, my hero, that gladiator, we're gonna bring America back together.
Right, I'm gonna skip ahead. He's got a pillow on the side of his ear. Have you seen that? It almost looks like a bathroom tile. Right.
Trumpites.
Right. Okay. Trumpites. Trump-a-Mania.
Yeah.
But I wanted to get to the t-shirt tearing bit for the video listeners.
And they tried to kill the next
president
of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trump-a-Mania run wild, brother. Let Trump-a-Mania rule again. Let Trump-a-Mania make America great again.
Okay. That'll do. That's the main bit of it.
Actually, that was pretty good. I enjoyed that because Trump was a big friend of the McMahon family, and his business is in New York, Trump Tower, and that's where he was from too. And he's a big wrestling fan. And then he appeared on some WrestleManias, and you know, Vince did a couple angles with him where Vince ends up getting his hair cut. And he knows Hulk, but he didn't ask the campaign, from what I understand. They didn't ask Hulk to appear. Hulk volunteered to appear. This was after Trump got shot. And when he stood there with his left hand in the air and he said, fight, fight, fight. And I mean,
that'll probably have won him the election, that, I think, straight away.
Well, the elections go back and forth. It's a little closer now. But I can't believe Kamala Harris went from 0% 4 years ago and only had like 28% before, when she was vice president, approval rating, and now she's up to 48 because she's ahead of the ticket.
Well, that's probably why Hulk Hogan got involved, because he heard Kamala was back, and he was going to.
Kamala, they had some big matches. But anyway, I enjoyed that, and the crowd, it was very receptive. That's one thing about wrestling. It is universal, and you got homeless people on the street liking wrestling, and you got billionaires liking wrestling. And I've said this before, when you get in front of a wrestling crowd, when you look out in that crowd, you're seeing America. You're seeing the people that make this country work, get up every day, pay their taxes, send their kids to school, follow the law, some of them, and they make the country work. But I enjoyed Hulk's interview. And now I'm thinking, has he gone full circle? Remember, he had that trouble, 7 years ago? Mm-hmm. And, everybody just like disowned him. Well, you can disown somebody, but, that runs its route too. So I think he's back now. And I hope he's back. So Hulk's got a big mouth, and he says a lot. He stretches the truth a lot. So, but he's a pretty good guy.
What do you think?
I met him when he first started out. I made a couple of trips with him. I was in Florida, and when you make a Tallahassee trip from Tampa, Florida to Tallahassee, hell, that's a hell of a long way. So you got a lot of time in the car to sit and talk to somebody, get to know them. And he told me he was a musician and all this stuff, and he wanted to be a wrestler, and he was pretty cut up then, not cut up like he ended up later. But you learn a lot from somebody by being in close proximity to them for several hours at a time.
Mm-hmm. What did you learn about Hogan?
Well, that, he was a musician and he wanted to, and he was a weightlifter, and I think he wanted to play pro ball, but he got hurt or something. And he wanted to get into wrestling, basically. And that's what I learned from him.
You also said once, I don't know if it was on the podcast or not, that you said that he was so boring and that he just wouldn't stop talking about himself for so long that you wouldn't ride with him back.
Well, he does talk quite a bit about himself. So, but he never really asked me a lot about the business. He would just talk about his training routine. And because when you get on a trip, let's say a 3.5 hour trip, it can be very, very boring if somebody is not talking. And I've been in cars with guys that weren't good talkers. I would just go to sleep. But some of those trips were some of my best memories from the wrestling profession, because I had such a good time on some of those trips, because I had good conversation going, and some of the good conversationalists I was with, I'll tell you later.
So we actually got this isn't Ask Dutch anything, of course, but this is quite salient to this bit of the news. So Todd B, Columbus, Ohio, wrote and says, "Hello, James and Dutch. I'm sure by now you've had a chance to digest Hulk Hogan's appearance at this year's Republican National Convention. How would you rate his speech?" Which we've already done. "But do you think it's wise for WWE personnel or legends to dip their toes into politics so strongly, regardless of political affiliation? And do you think this appearance was cleared by WWE before the fact?"
Well, I don't know why it would have to be cleared.
Well, I think he's still a WWE ambassador, I guess. I mean, because WWE welcomed him back quite a few years ago. So, I mean, it is a third-party booking. I don't know if it relates to WWE, if it has to be cleared.
You're going to be careful about politics. And what I hate about politics is that if you don't believe the same thing as I believe, I can't help it. But don't get hot at me. Because if you get hot at me, don't I have freedom of speech too, just like you do? So if you don't agree with me, you don't agree with me. But I would think with TKO now taking over WWE, and one of their main guys is Dana White.
Mm-hmm. Who also gave a speech.
And he gave a speech, and Linda McMahon was in the building that night. And so I don't think he would have any problem okaying it. I think they would say, yeah, go for it. Because I think it did get WWE a lot of exposure and a lot of coverage. And I don't think it hurt anything, really.
You know, it's one of those interesting things where I believe this is true, is that and I know this from how many interviews I've done, the overwhelming majority of wrestlers are Republican, but the majority of wrestling viewers, or at least WWE viewers, are Democrat. I always found that quite fascinating, how there was a...
How do you know that?
I believe I read it a couple of years ago. It skews Democrat, the viewership. And my belief that wrestlers are Republican, or at least older wrestlers, is me interviewing over 100 of them, and they all are, basically. Yeah.
Well, I thought they were mostly Democrat.
No, geez, you must be joking. No, nearly everyone I've spoke to, who talks about politics, or maybe it's just Republicans want to talk about politics more. I don't know, but they're overwhelmingly Republican in my experience, and that's over 100 different people I've interviewed.
Really?
Yeah. So, because you mentioned,
would you say Kane is a Republican? He's really libertarian.
He's really libertarian, running on a Republican ticket. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. We are going to, because you mentioned Linda McMahon. Linda McMahon says family doing great. So what culture this is from? McMahon spoke positively, this is Linda, about Donald Trump's relationship with WWE over the years, about her own personal friendship with him. She also gave a speech on stage. Then, right at the end of the chat, the interviewer asked Linda how her family have been faring following an up and down year. Without hesitating, McMahon replied, "Oh, we're all doing great, thank you." It's unlikely that Linda was caught off guard by the question, but she certainly wasn't going to go and stand there and get into detail.
She's well versed in how to answer those questions, because I think hubby Vince probably unknowingly and through her advisors, they tell her how to answer these questions. Just blow it off and keep going. And I don't blame her because she can't answer for him anyway. Can't answer for the families, and she just moves along. I don't blame her.
Typical politician, though. I wonder if someone's ever going to nail her down and say, "What do you think about all these terrible allegations about your husband?" Because they are still legally married.
She won't answer. And I think any reporter who would ask her that question and put it on tape, I think that's in very bad taste. She had nothing to do with it. She was associated with it, and that's it. I mean, what do you have to think about? She was married to a guy who had some peccadillos. Is that what it is?
Some deviances.
And she probably knew nothing about it.
She must have known that Vince had other women over the years. How could she not?
Oh, she did. She did. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
I don't mean like to that extreme, that.
But listen, she would be. She may be thinking now she should have went ahead and divorced him years ago, because now he's in this other trouble, and that's where a ton of money may go.
Oh no! Well, why didn't she divorce him now? Now that he's a multiple billionaire, not just on paper, but in the bank account.
So that is a good strategy. Divorce him now, get at least half that they can't touch, and she'll be down the road. Do they still live in the same house?
Oh God, no. They I believe have been split and living separate lives for a number of years now.
Okay, say when I was there 10 years ago. Were they together then?
That's a good question. Any wrestling detectives out there, can anybody name the last time Linda McMahon was seen on WWE TV? Because I don't think it's been in the 2020s. I hope I'm right there. Maybe the mid-2010s. So, yeah, maybe around that time they officially or unofficially or covertly split up and just lived their separate lives. Here's another question for you about Linda. Do you think that she will be, if this case with Janelle Grant gets to court,
yes,
do you think they will depose Linda about what she may or may not have known?
They could, but I don't know. What would be the purpose of deposing her?
Maybe she could give background information as far as Vince philandering or further.
Well, they got evidence of that. They don't need her to say it.
They might want her to,
Hey, she could just cover it by saying, well, he was my husband and I loved him. I mean, you can't legislate people's feelings. And whether she felt that way or not, that could be her answer. I'm going to have to ask my attorney, Adam Burbrower. I got to ask him about that. He's our legal counsel here now. You know that, right?
I know that. Did he provide you with cigars?
No, but he, very good attorney. So if anybody needs some legal advice, talk to Mr. Burbrower and he'll supply it to you.
We're going to move on. I suppose we could watch it. But anyway, Dalton Castle is out for 2024. I've done one of these things where I've forgotten to format the deal and have it to AEW and WWE and whatever.
What do you do on your time off?
Me?
Don't you work on this show?
You presuming I've got time off?
This is AEW footage?
Yes, it is. So anyway, I'm going to mute it because... Oh, hang on. Do you know I'm not going to mute it?
They're bitches.
It's tough shit.
And if you show this, they might do that takedown.
Well, the problem is it's fair use, and I'm allowed to use it because we're watching it for the purpose of criticism or critique. And if they want to attempt to take it down, then I will take them to fucking court. Here we go.
Ooh.
So there's two things really to talk about there. Let's examine the knee lift first. I've got to be honest, when I saw that, it didn't look particularly bad. But if I scrub it frame by frame...
Can't you hear it?
Not when I'm scrubbing it frame by frame, but you can see his head.
And you can see it there. He got rung. Yep.
But in full frame, it doesn't really look like he connects with him. Here it is again.
And the reason this looks odd is it's an edit.
It is, yeah. So the referee actually stopped counting.
He did a Damian Priest here. He forgot to kick out.
Yeah. Well, he didn't forget to kick out. I think he forgot to do... Well, what's happened? Gone. There we go. So one more time for the weird edit.
Wow. 1, 2, and...
There we go for the literally fans in the front there. I mean, I know it's just the lighting, but Collision's lighting is horrendous. Dynamite's not as bad. And the pay-per-views aren't as bad because they've got more fans in, but look how dark it is. Anyway, something that we harp on about a lot. Right, so he's going to... Here's the amazing thing, Dutch.
He's going to be out for the rest of the year, right?
Yeah, but not because of that, amazingly.
Really?
Yeah.
What's wrong with him? What's wrong with Dalton Castle?
Good question. We don't know. He picked up a separate injury in that same match that is going to see him out for the rest of 2024. He was knocked out, but he was not concussed.
Well, see, that's what we were talking earlier about. Wrestlers have all these injuries, and I think their body ages faster than ordinary people. That we have to, because I think we live 2 or 3 lifetimes. That's just a saying, I know, but we're everywhere in different time zones, and after a while, that does take an effect on you. And but getting hurt like that and getting your bell rung. See, most people go through life being knocked out. After you play football and some other sports, yeah, you may take a shot to the head, you may get concussed. But you know how many times I've been knocked out?
It's either once or twice. I know it was once in Japan.
Oh God, I'm still reeling from that. Yeah. Hey, we need to show that one time.
We should do. What about the other? Were there any other times?
Oh yeah. I just can't remember them. One time I'm working with this guy, Ted Oates, who I broke in with in Georgia a lifetime ago. And we were in Savannah, Georgia, and had a really strong ring light and had a good crowd in there that night. And all of a sudden our heads hit and we both got knocked out. We were both laying there knocked out. And I went, whoa, what the hell? And then I heard him say something. And I don't even remember finishing the match, or nor does he. I asked Ted later, I said, do you remember finishing this match? He said, no, and I don't either. And I was so knocked out, I went the wrong way when I left the ring, and somebody else, a cop, had to say, hey, no, you got to go this way. But that was one time I got knocked out. I got knocked out several more times working with some of these stiff-ass bastards that just thought just because they had the body but they had the power, but didn't know how much power they had. And I swear to God, some of these guys, I've been in easier street fights than having a match with them. And we'll talk about a guy a little bit later, Doug Furnace. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about him. And they had another guy named Brockus.
Oh, we've talked about Brockus before, yeah.
God, if I had a gun, I swear to God, I should have went down during the match, not after the match, but during the match. I should have went and got the gun and just shot his kneecap. I said, well, you'll sell this.
What I was getting at is with Dalton Castle, so he's going to be out for the rest of 2024, but
he's getting paid.
Yeah, probably. This is like one of 4 injuries in a week for AEW. So they have Sky Blue suffered a broken ankle, giving, I must say, it looked like nothing. A crossbody block from the middle rope to the outside. Was
she the catcher or she was a giver?
She was the diver. She was the diver. She just landed and then somehow she broke her ankle. Jay White suffered a foot injury a week earlier, causing the Bang Bang Gang to forfeit the AEW Trios titles. And in a continuation, for the AEW Trios titles, the vacant ones, the patriarchy of Christian Killswitch and Nick Wayne won those titles the next week. But then Killswitch, who was the former Luchasaurus, suffered a partially torn biceps. who will be working through that injury at least. But it's like, it's just I'm not even sure it's particularly, doing horribly dangerous stuff. It just seems to just be a spate of injuries in AEW.
Well, it happens. Yeah. It happens.
Yeah. I mean, what was the most simple thing that you got injured from? Because I know we've talked about major injuries before, but like just doing just the smallest thing has resulted in something that's put you out for weeks or really hampered you.
Well, I never had an injury that put me out for weeks. You know why?
Because you didn't do stupid things?
No, because if I was out, guess what?
Yeah.
I didn't get paid. So what you have wrestlers doing is working through injuries. Back in my day, you just tell a guy, hey, watch my arm, watch my leg, watch this. And, guys would take care of you. And you could go out there and, we could do a stand-up match and you couldn't do it forever, but you could do it through an injury because you had no choice. So if you say your back was hurt, don't give me a slam, don't give me a backdrop, don't, let's cut down on the, you could still take a few bumps, but they hurt and you don't know what damage you were doing. There's no telling if you ran a scan on a wrestler at the end of his career, his whole skeletal frame is injured somewhere. And doctors look at it and said, oh man, you did this and you did that. But yeah, we live faster than the ordinary person on the street.
Next item of news. This is one that you sent me that you want to talk about. So CM Punk contract renegotiations on Raw. This is two different things, really. Punk announced that he was cleared and wanted to fight Drew McIntyre right then and there, and then McIntyre came out, but he wasn't interested in fighting Punk. And as Punk attempted to attack McIntyre, Adam Pearce interrupted and said that the match would take place at SummerSlam. Then Seth Rollins came out and said he was going to be the guest referee. Anyway, Wrestling Purist quote for you now. I can tell you right now that he being CM Punk, is in the process of trying to get his deal restructured from a money and years standpoint. Punk's legitimate stance right now is if all goes well, he will never leave. That's his legitimate standpoint. He wants to be in WWE forever, is the actual words he used. Basically, he wants to work this out, and he wants to get paid, and then he wants, when it's time to slow it down and just run NXT. So that's an interesting quote straight off. I mean, for the contract portion first, we believe that he was working on a short-term deal that was hammered out very, very shortly before he re-debuted at Survivor Series 2023 last year. But, I mean, what do you think CM Punk's worth to WWE in money terms now?
I don't know. I have no idea what he's worth. How's his gimmicks doing? Good?
Very good. Yeah. He's one of the top sellers straight away.
So, see, that gets your worth up right off the bat. If you can sell those gimmicks out there, because they make a killing off those gimmicks. And say like in Chicago, there's no telling how much merchandise he sells just in Chicago alone, not counting like online stuff and the other live events they do. But that gets all figured in his total pay. So when you think sometimes some guys may sell enough gimmicks to pay their whole salary. Hard to believe, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But so, and if you say they give a guy $3 million and his gimmick sells over the years, the profit of it, they may make $2 million. So they really only pay him $1 million. And that's all they're entitled to. So they're actually coming out. That's to their benefit. So I think he wants a 3 or 4 or 5 year deal. That's probably what he wants at probably, I don't know, $4 million a year. And I think they'll go for that.
I think more.
Okay.
I think he'll get paid more.
Well, he may be.
Okay, I'm going to give you a few names now. You tell me if you think CM Punk is worth more or less or the same as Cody Rhodes. If, let's say, you are not just the booker, you are the promoter, you're paying people, and they're over exactly in this day and age is CM Punk worth the same as Cody Rhodes, more or less?
I think about the same thing.
Roman Reigns.
I don't think he's not in the Roman Reigns range right now, but close.
Drew McIntyre.
I think he's worth a little more than Drew. I think.
Brock.
I think it, but see, he has more. See, CM Punk can talk.
Well, so can Drew. In fairness, he's done great.
Well, but I don't think he can talk like CM Punk can, because he goes out and talks to him, and hey, see, I'm not the big Cody Rhodes fans that everybody else is. What do you want to talk about? That's over. But I think he's probably worth more than Drew a little bit.
Brock Lesnar. Because let's say he's still under contract, but he's only part-time, but ultimately is he worth more or less or the same as Brock Lesnar?
I'll say he's worth less than Brock. I don't think Brock's coming back. Do you?
I said he is. I think he will. I think he'll come back this year.
Okay.
That's my guess. I said he'd come back at the Saudi Arabia event in like September or whatever it is. But I think he's coming back.
If he comes back in September, I swear to God, I'm flying to London and slapping you.
It's fine because I live in Manchester.
Oh, then I'll rent a car and I go to Manchester. Then I got to find your address.
Why don't you just? Oh yeah, because I gave you my old address. Why don't you just fly to Manchester and then the rent a car?
And you pick me up. Wait a minute, you come to meet me at the airport. Hey, we can make this really economical. I fly to Manchester. You just meet me at the airport. I slap you then, get back on a plane, go back. Then it's quick and easy then.
You won't do flights anymore, though.
Listen, I have flown only a minuscule part of what some of those guys in WWE have now. But I've probably flown 3-4 million miles. That's a lot of miles. And that's another thing that aged me. Making all those trips, listen to this bull crap along the way. Okay, continue.
There's one more thing I wanted to add, right? So I was thinking about these segments, two more things actually. I was sort of comparing in my mind CM Punk to Steve Austin in a specific sense. When Steve Austin got hurt, when he was dropped on the top of his head and compressed his neck and everything, he didn't wrestle for 3 or 4 months.
Didn't Owen Hart hurt him?
Yep, Owen Hart did it.
I don't know if Owen Hart hurt him, but the move that Owen Hart was attempting to do, he got hurt then.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. Here's the thing, is that Austin got more over by not wrestling and just doing segments every week. And I think I think weirdly, this second triceps injury for CM Punk has done nothing but favors for him. Because, his cardio wasn't that amazing when he returned. And
okay, look at Cody getting hurt.
Yeah. The best thing for him, weirdly.
He got hurt at a time where he needed to be out of sight because Vince was still in the picture. And no telling what Vince would have done to him.
On him.
So I think he got hurt at the opportune time that he needed to be out of the picture. And then when Vince faded, Cody come back in, and it's all been wine and roses since then.
The other thing I wanted to mention, and this actually, WWE has got its problems, of course, like everything else, nothing's perfect. But one thing that WWE has done really great recently is building up to these big segments with, let's say, Punk or the Bloodline or whoever. You'll know about, the Bloodline, of course, because you watch SmackDown every week. And it reminds me of being a kid. I started watching in 93. And I remember vividly, the contract signing between Yokozuna and Lex Luger. And weirdly, that was the debut of Jim Cornette as Yokozuna's American spokesman and that kind of thing. It's one of those things where, like, back in the day, you remember a storyline arc and you remember all the beats that ended up going to the big match. And that's something that's been missing from WWE since 99.
No. Yes. What have I said all along? It's the story. And they take you along on this story, but they don't shove it at you all at one time. It's spaced out. They have great, and I hate to say this, but they do. When Triple H got there, they got good writers. They have great pacing. Because I saw a SmackDown show about a month ago, and it flew by because they threw all their angles and all their stories at you on one show, and it was gone. Boom. And you look up and you said, "What, is it over?" Of course, but it didn't seem like you sat there for 2 hours. 2 years ago, when you was watching SmackDown, you'd be going, God, when's this show going to be over? For no reason. I had nothing else to do. It's 11 o'clock at night. What do you got to do? But they have great pacing and great stories, and they followed one of my rules of booking. Don't go so far as you can't back up and go back a little bit, unless you're just sure. And when you shoot it, you're sure that this is the time to shoot it. Now, we all knew the Paul Heyman breakup was coming. We just didn't know when. But the people were sitting there, and you don't even have to be. I mean, you can just be only halfway, know about wrestling to know that, Paul's out there and he was having trouble, and you're thinking, well, okay, when's this thing going to blow up? And finally, and that was the show. When that blew up, you knew it was coming. So you can predict when it's coming. So, but even now that it's over, you're thinking, Roman Reigns is coming back. And now Paul was not with them. So you're visualizing in your head how it's going to happen. But when that happened, it's going to blow the roof off, and they got another year run just with that.
There's very much a thing in the older days, in a 20, 25 year span almost, of just throwing as much out there and hoping it sticks. And it was great in 98. But then at some point in 99, 2000, just so much was happening. There was still a lot of great moments and, a fantastic cast of characters. But then by 2002, it just wore everybody out. Yeah. And then there's just no arcs like there is today. But yes.
You see who's going through this now is AEW. They don't have any of those long-ranging stories. They'll have a story like TNA used to have. It seemed like we were just booking from pay-per-view to pay-per-view. We were booking like a month arc. And we had very few programs, as we call them, or stories or angles that transcended more than one pay-per-view. Because we just didn't, I don't know, I was just a member of the committee. I just went along with what they said. But it's if you're just going from pay-per-view to pay-per-view, you just say, well, it's ending here because what are we going to do? Then you got to restart it. Or put the key back in the ignition because you turned it off. It's hard to understand, but if you have these stories that have long arcs, how long has the bloodline been going on?
3 years? Yeah.
3 years. And they got all that history they can draw from now. Now they got a new bloodline. Now, of course, when when Roman comes back and Paul Heyman joins him, and he gets the two Uso boys back with him, and now you got a whole new look to every show and every TV that WWE does, and they'll be the basis of it. How many Samoans are in WWE right now? 10?
Yeah. Well, you say Samoans, but Samoans, Tongans, etc.
Yeah, but then all that group, they're all kind of related. Yes, well. Tamina got let go, right?
Tamina Snuka, did she?
I think so.
Wait
a minute, you're the news guy here. You're supposed to.
Okay, I'll have a look. In fact, you know what? I'm going to pause and just double check. Oh, go on. No, you speak Dutch. I'll check.
Well, I thought she would never be let go just because she was Polynesian. You want to be so politically correct with it. Yeah, she was related to all of them, so she would be one of the last ones to be let go.
Well, it says that she was signed back in 2010. She's still listed internally within the company, so she's not been let go yet. But if that changes, we'll bring it up next week, I guess. Right.
Okay.
Speaking of people being let go, what a wonderful segue to bring this up on Bobby Lashley, seemingly gone from WWE. So returning to WWE in 2019 and becoming a two-time WWE champion, 2023 saw the downfall of Lashley in the eyes of the WWE office when he went from main events to being left off of WrestleMania 39. Now, this is a confluence of terrible circumstances, of course, after Bray Wyatt got pulled from the show due to ill health. Then after that, Lashley just seemed to be shunted firmly down to the mid-card with Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. They had a group called The Pride. And then Lashley was removed from the King of the Ring tournament this May, just gone with an injury being cited. Now he apparently got a less than stellar contract offer from WWE and is looking to leave the promotion. I mean, this dude was a big... When he returned, he was treated like the main eventer that he looked like. And then he's had his run in the sun, and in the last couple of years, they just... Why have they fallen out of love with Lashley, you think?
Okay, very simple. Wrestlers have a shelf life. They do. It's like you go to the supermarket and you look up, do not use after such and such a date, or discard it after this date. Wrestlers are the same way because people, I think the creative in WWE just said, what else can we do with him? What else? Because he's an average talker and he just got that great body. Good guy, great guy. But if you keep the same wrestlers over and over and over that are like, I don't want to say mundane, but, they become like a part of the furniture, they're not going to draw you any money. They're not going to draw you any interest. They're not going to sell any merchandise. So it's time to go. And actually it does the wrestler a favor in a lot of places if he has somewhere to go. But see, if AEW picks up Bobby Lashley at this point, I don't think they will know what to do with him either. So, and how old is he? He's in late 40s, right?
Yeah, he's 48.
And it's time for him to step out of the ring and go do something else.
Does Bobby Lashley, as we say, he looks phenomenal, especially at his age. Cannot be
tremendous.
Denied. You can't put that guy in the mid card, or you can't put him on the undercard. It's almost like he has to be opening match or main event or nothing because he looks the part.
But that's the problem you run into. What do I do with him? And WWE ran into that same problem because, like you said, you can't put him in the first match because that's really embarrassing to the company and to him and to fans. The fans said, wow. The first thing they're going to think is, wow, he went down the card. He's opening the show. So you actually devalue what his worth was, and his worth was, of course, is not what it was 5, 6, 8 years ago. So you actually devalue the company and him at the same time. So the best thing to do is separate from him. And I think this is the last time we'll probably see Bobby Lashley in WWE in an active in-ring role. And it's not that it's not that he's got heat with them. They're thinking, right? If I was a member of creative, I would think, what can I do with Bobby Lashley? Because he is a main eventer. And you can't come up with just some lame-ass excuse as a gimmick because it's not going to get over. I don't care what you do. The best laid plans of mice and men, what's that saying? Go astray or whatever it is. But you're working with a product that's dated, and it's hard to bring it back into vogue.
Okay, I've got a theory. He was fine for 21, 22, that kind of thing. But I mean, 2024 now, we've got CM Punk, we've got Cody Rhodes, we've got Jacob Fatu, we've got Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, Randy Orton. I could go on. There are so many main event caliber wrestlers there with more personality
Right.
They sort of eclipse Bobby Lashley as appeal goes, I guess.
Yes.
Would that be fair to say?
That's exactly what I'm saying. See, he's competing with them and he can't compete. I don't think he can compete with them because he's like yesterday. And what are you going to give me today? I'm a fan. I'm sitting there, I'm saying, oh, what are they going to give me now? And they going to give me Bobby Lashley? Well, I don't think so.
So, that being said, Bobby Lashley...
wait a minute. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. Well, it's what I'm saying. Is like you can't recycle him too low on the card because it'd look ridiculous. You can't keep him in the main events because there are people who are more likely to draw in the main events. But he's somewhere caught in between the two. He's a bit of an odd character in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
So let us now talk about MVP, who I know you worked with him in Puerto Rico in the early days. You told him to stop doing so much of that damn wrestling and start doing personality.
Oh, I did. He went out there. I'm watching the match, and the people just sitting there. People sitting there like this, like, ooh, and nothing wrong with what he was doing. They just weren't responding to it. See, if you're going to get their attention, you got to go do something. Act extravagant, act crazy, act this, but just get them off their butts. Get them up. That's what I'm talking about. The temperature in the room. If you just go out there and wrestle and the people are not responding, what's the first thing you're going to think? Damn, I got to do something. I got to see if I can get some kind of interest. And you may not have but 200 people. So if you only got 200 people, just go out there and slap every one of them. Then you have a personal experience with each one of them. They all hate you, but you got to get them up.
Right. So with MVP, well, Bobby Lashley, it's speculated he's going. MVP is now looking to be shown the WWE door as well, and he wasn't really used for quite a while anyway. But apparently, he never intended to be rehired anyway. So this is from his Instagram. I came back so my baby boy could see Daddy in a WWE ring, the Royal Rumble. That's all I wanted. A one-off. I was ready to retire. Then I received an offer to become a producer. Agent, the old lingo. The pandemic hit. I became a producer and a commentator for Main Event. Next, they asked me to put the boots on and help out with TV during the PC era. One episode of Raw, MVP was in 9 segments. Paul Heyman agreed to put me and Roberto together. I signed a full-time talent contract, and then we made history. What a ride. So if nothing else, incredibly grateful. But here's the thing. Bobby Lashley's going, MVP's going, Shelton Benjamin is already a free agent. So MVP, supposedly, has tried to trademark the Hurt Business and wants to take the act to AEW, according to Dave Meltzer. Here's the quote. I know there is talk of them trying to get into AEW. It's one of those things where technically nobody can talk to them because I don't believe either's contract has expired, but their contracts are going to expire and they're at this point as things stand right now. WWE is under the assumption that they're gone and that they are going to try and revamp the Hurt Business. What do you think of that?
The Hurt Business belongs to WWE. That's where it was patented, copyrighted. So he can probably take the Hurt Business to AEW. He just can't call it the Hurt Business.
Why don't you call it the Hurt Locker? Because I kept calling him the Hurt Locker.
He could probably do that. But anything that resembles, you still might have a legal fight over it. And I'm sure that I don't think Tony Khan wants to deal with any legalities now. But hey, if he takes them over, still the Hurt Business, just under another name. And I think everybody understands that, they can't have the same name they had in WWE. So that's where the heat on Bobby. What was his name? MVP. That's where the heat came, because he was going to try to take the group that was created in WWE to AEW.
Well, I don't know if he's got heat for it. I think he's just trying his luck with the trademarking, if nothing else. But here's the thing I want to bring to you. Bobby Lashley's 48. Shelton Benjamin is 49, and MVP in a couple of months is turning 51. So you've got a group of 3 guys with a collective age of 150 there. Mm-hmm. I mean, if AEW does pick them up, I know they keep picking up a WWE waifs and strays, but they're pretty old.
What AEW is doing, if they pick them up, is doing WWE a favor and doing the guys a favor. They're giving them a job, and Tony Khan would pay them well, I guess. But I don't know if okay, you got to be in the position of a creative person. Say Tony Khan is booking it. I don't know what he's going to do with those guys. I don't know anybody off the top of my head right now who's turning the needle in AEW. Yes or no?
No, no one major. So the last AEW Dynamite rating I saw was up, and it was the MJF Will Ospreay main event that went an hour that you watched the last 20 minutes of, and so did I. And that bumped up the viewership about 100,000. So they actually promoted this match in advance, only a few days or a week or whatever, but they actually promoted this match in advance. And here's the other thing, is what I'm trying to get at, is AEW is meant to be the alternative to WWE, and generally an alternative to WCW was its own deal, I suppose, TNA. But AEW is trying to appeal and be like the cool alternative. But they keep picking up AEW guys who are in their 50s, WWE guys who are in their 50s now. Like Edge was a very recent example.
Everybody knows that except Tony Khan. I look at it, and he has some good talent there. He needs to take the talent. And if you just load up with, you look like a retirement home for old WWE wrestlers. That's
Edge,
what you look like.
Jeff Jarrett, Dustin Rhodes. They've got a lot of active guys in their 50s there, or in their mid 40s at least. And I'm trying not to be ageist here, but if you're trying to be a young hip alternative,
you're very, very ageist.
Yes, I am in this one. But I mean, you really want to be promoting guys in their 20s and up to mid 30s, I guess.
Well, you want them to have potential to be used past. I mean, for a long run. Here, Edge, he had retired. I mean, not Edge. Yeah, he had retired, right? In WWE, and all of a sudden he pops up in AEW. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't really retire. I just moved over to another company. So I don't know. I guess he has those hardcore fans, but I don't think he has them in such a number that they're going to make a difference.
No, but at least they got rid of Ric Flair, which will drop the median age about 20 or 30 years.
Hey, I'm going to call him up and tell him you said that.
Okay. Next one is Sid Vicious, who we've not brought up in a while.
And how old is Sid?
He's not going to AEW. I don't think it matters.
No.
He must be in his 60s now, do you think?
I think he's 60. Yeah.
Still
looks good, though.
Yeah, you're going to make me look now. Hang on, let me have a look. Sid Vicious died in 1979. No, that's the other Sid Vicious.
That's the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, hang on.
You know who gives Sid? I told you I gave Sid the name, right?
Oh, yeah.
From the Sex Pistols. I said, let's call him Sid Udi. I said, that doesn't have a ring to it. Call him Sid Vicious. And I stole the name from the Sex Pistols, and that's how he became Sid Vicious. And I've been surprised that he never was sued for that.
Well,
he stole the name.
The guy
he stole
died
the name
in 79. I mean, who's going to sue him?
Yeah, that's right.
So he's 63, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
He's 63. So, speaking to the Attitude Era podcast, Sid said the following. You think that they would offer that for Hall of Fame induction? Again, Vince McMahon didn't like me so much. I think that's why they haven't offered that me. But with Vince being gone now, you'd think those people would say, hey, this guy who's still got him on contract. Hey, have they still got him on contract? I didn't know Sid was under contract with him. He is still making a little bit of money. It would help him if we did that, and it would help them as well. He continued, you would think they might want to do everything they could to promote something like that. That might be something fun to start to. If you get back in, you might want to do something like a part-time deal, be a manager, or how can Sid be a manager? Or special. I think I was pretty good at interviews too. There's always a lot of people having a hard time with that. If I could teach them, maybe I could help doing them with interviews. So, okay, there's a lot to unpack there. One, is Sid a Hall of Fame worthy wrestler?
He's not in the Hall of Fame?
No.
Well, he could be Hall of Fame. Listen, what does it take to be a Hall of Fame wrestler?
Coco Beware's in it.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. So it's a subjective, it's not objective, it's a subjective classification. And if they said, well, yeah, we need somebody to put in the Hall of Fame, said, okay, just put him in. So there's probably precedent for him to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think they have any set rules that you got to cover this or cover that. Like baseball, you got to have hits and a batting average or a pitching, winning record. But since this is show business, you can just pick whoever you want.
I've got a fact for you. Okay, I've got two. One, Chris Von Erich, the little one with the stunted growth. He's in the WWE Hall of Fame.
No, he's not.
He is. As a package deal with the Von Erich family, he's a WWE Hall of Famer.
Okay, well, let me ask you, what do they get for being in the Hall of Fame?
Okay, I believe you get a WWE Legends deal, and there are different tiers of Legends deals regarding, they'll make a figure out of you probably, they'll do a profile on you, whatever, and they'll give you like a small contract. I think that's how it used to work. But I've got this one's going to stun you. Do you know who's in the WWE Hall of Fame Legacy Wing? So they're technically inducted, but they didn't get an induction on, especially done it. Guess who?
Who?
Brickhouse Brown.
No.
Brickhouse Brown is in the WWE Hall of Fame.
I got a story about him.
Go on.
No, not right now, but
okay.
It's a story about, it's a match I had with him one time. How did he get in there?
He just got lumped in. I don't know.
What did Brickhouse Brown's never even been there, has he?
He was briefly as a jobber. That was it.
Oh, you can't use that word.
Oh, yes, according to Dustin Rhodes. We'll get to that soon enough. Okay, his enhancement talent.
But Brickhouse Brown is in there. Why? But wait a minute. Why am I not in there then?
Because you haven't died yet, I guess.
No, wait a minute. Brickhouse Brown, he got in after he passed away?
Yeah.
So he's not going to get any money?
No.
He can't help him now. I thought he was in it several years ago, so he'd have been getting some money. That's what he needed. He needed some money.
I think it was after he died. Yeah.
Really?
I think so. Or it was on the cusp.
Well, that is the most unlikely candidate of all time to be in the WWE, Legacy Hall of Fame?
So it's the legacy wing of the WWE Hall of Fame. Basically, they get a bunch of people.
Who else is in there?
Loads of people. I spoke to Sean Stasiak. His dad, Stan the Man Stasiak, was in the legacy version.
I know him.
Yeah, so they didn't give him like a proper version. Lord Alfred Hayes, I think, was in the legacy version. Brickhouse Brown died in 2018. He was inducted into the legacy version of the Hall of Fame in 2020. Okay, Dick the Bruiser. He's in the legacy.
Okay,
Buzz
that's
Sawyer,
good.
Paul Bosch.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. Paul Bosch should have been bigger, really.
Yeah. Jim Barnett, Buddy Rose, S.D. Jones, Luna Vachon, Wahoo McDaniel, Bruiser Brody.
Yeah.
He's in the legacy version. Stan Stasiak, Lord Alfred Hayes, El Santo, the biggest draw in the history of wrestling, was only given a legacy thing. Jim Londos, Sputnik Monroe, who you met Sputnik, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Boris Malenko, Hiro Matsuda. I'm going to give you a few more. I'm going to give up. June Byers, Farmer Burns, for Christ's sake.
Jim Byers. Oh, he's a football player.
No, June, the lady.
June Byers.
Yeah. Haystacks Calhoun, Dr. Jerry Graham, your favourite. Luther Lindsay, Toots Monts, Ricky Dozan, for goodness sake, the legend of Japan, and Bearcat Wright. There's some more. There's more. George Hackensmith, Pat O'Connor, Lou Thez.
I swear to God, I'm calling Triple H today, and I said, by God, if Brickhouse is in it, you need to put me in it. So I need to be in that.
Okay, back to Sid.
I think we need to start a write-in campaign. I want everybody that is listening to the show, our 120,000 subscribers, all to write to WWE and tell them they should install me in the legacy wing of the Hall of Fame.
I think the legacy thing is mostly for people who died. I'm trying to see if there was anyone who's still alive that's in the legacy wing.
Oh, wait, you got to die before you get in there?
Well, everyone else seems to be dead in the legacy version. I think it's just so they. I think it's just so they don't have to. Toru Tanaka.
Pay you at something.
Yeah.
A bunch of cheap ass bastards.
Right. Toru Tanaka was a bad shout.
Wait
He
a
died in
minute.
2000.
Couldn't the estate sue WWE for putting people in there?
Good question, because Sean Stasiak didn't even know that Stan.
Hey, this is another question for our attorney, Adam Burbrower.
Let me have a look. Baron Leone. He's dead, isn't he? He's got to be. Well, he was wrestling in the 50s, I guess. So.
Boy, you're bringing some long, old names up.
Anyway, we're going to leave. Well, no, we're going to talk about Sid now. So, okay, he wants two more things.
I think Sid should be installed as the interview coach at NXT.
Why?
Yeah, Sid did that. He did that interview that, he would scream and he's very noticeable. So Sid's a big guy. So when that camera comes in on his face, he'll make an impression on you, not by what he says, but how he's delivering it. But not everybody can deliver a promo like Sid, but he has a style and a delivery that I don't know if he could teach it, but sounds like to me he wants the job. That's what it sounds like.
I'm going to get back to his promos in a second. Manager. I mean, isn't he like 6 foot, like legitimately 6 foot?
No,
he's
he's
the biggest manager in the world.
No, he's 6'9".
He's billed at 6'9". Come on, you couldn't have been 6'9".
Are you calling me a liar again? But I'm proud of you, James, because how long has this show been going on? 40 minutes? 50 minutes?
An hour 10, actually.
Okay, an hour 10 has gone on this long, and this is the first time you've doubted and basically called me a liar to my face. That's another time. That's another way I'm going to come to Manchester and give you a big slap.
Well, you need to have more than one reason.
You can't hit me back either.
But no, how can you dictate on my own home turf?
Hey, I'm much older than you. So if you hit me, I'm over 60. So then you'd go to jail for.
You see, I don't know what crazy laws you've got in Florida.
Well, no, this is a national law. It's called elderly abuse, and I'm sure that the UK has something like that too.
It's probably on a case by case basis. I'm sure the judge will see in my favor. Who knows? Build height 6'9". Everyone. He's a tall guy. I know he's a tall guy, but I mean, everyone adds an inch or two, don't they? Height-wise.
He's as tall as Taker.
Manager. So.
No, first of all, you don't have managers bigger than the wrestler you're managing.
Slick was always taller than most of the guys he managed. I always found him fascinating as a manager. He was very skinny, though, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sid teaching promo class. He's done some great ones. He's done some terrible ones.
Okay, listen. I would love to sit in. I would love to sit in on that class. Because Vince is Sid's pretty funny anyway, but and Sid has a little bit of a temper, and I would like it been cussing those guys out. No, God damn it. You do it like this. I would love to be able to just to be a fly on the wall and see that. I would like to see some of his graduates that come out of the Sid Vicious School of Interviewing.
Your favorite is when Sid didn't realize he was live.
Oh, I was there. Yeah, I think I was there. But doing it, it's a famous interview. And he started off and he lost his train of thought or something. And he told Jim Ross, and everybody's seen this. Let's do this again. Can't, pal. We're live. And Sid's face went, oh my God. Now it's out there.
It's funny, I know everyone mocks the Sid interviews in WCW that he did, but the vast majority of them are really good. And he's like
No, they
one of
were
those.
good.
He's like one of those like untapped treasures of the late WCW. That for the most part, he was actually really good. Some of the matches were terrible, but the interviews were great. I mean, not everyone was like only have half the brains that you do. There were tons of great ones in there. So anyway, one more thing actually about Sid. I suspect that Vince McMahon. It's said here that Vince wasn't a big fan of him, yet he kept hiring him. What
Wait a
three
minute.
different times?
I thought Vince was the reason Vince said got hired.
Well,
I always thought
the second time, apparently, it was Kevin Nash and Shawn Michaels and people like that vouching for Sid. But Vince didn't want to bring Sid back the second time in '95 when you were there.
Really?
Yeah, apparently so.
Was I there in '95?
You were?
Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was there now, but I was there in '95.
That was the Ron and Don Harris era.
Yeah. The golden era.
The golden era. Why do you think Vince wasn't a big fan of Sid?
Well, I think Sid would want to debate him, and he didn't like if they had an idea for Sid. Sid wouldn't like it, and I don't know. It could have been a personality clash. I don't know, but he worked up there a long time.
On and off, yeah.
Didn't he? Where did he break his leg? WCW?
WCW, yeah. He didn't really work that long. I think okay, let me get this right. Mid 91 to April 92. Then 95 spring, maybe, till spring of 97. And I think he was back and forth a couple of times in and out there as well. So, yeah, Vince wasn't... Here's the thing, right? One more thing about Sid. Have you ever tried to book Sid somewhere and he just not show up? Because apparently he's got...
If it's softball season, that's the knock. If it's softball season and you book Sid, if he's got a game, well, screw your show. He's going to go play softball. Same way with Lawler. If he's got a softball game, he ain't going. So I don't guess they played softball on Monday nights because Lawler he'd have made Raw because he made a lot of money, but you can forget Lawler. You can forget Lawler in softball season and the fall when Cleveland Browns are playing football.
Next question. Next topic, in fact, I should say. AEW, TNT, Warner Brothers, and the NBA. Now, we don't talk about sports, I guess, too much on this show because there's not really that much crossover with the subject, but in this case there is. So here's the long and short of it. TNT has matched Amazon, their bid of $1.8 billion a year to get the C package NBA games, right? They always used to be on TNT.
What is the C package? What's that mean?
Well, there's like an A package, a B package, and a C package as far as...
And they paid how much? 1.8 billion for how many years? 10?
10, yeah. They bid Amazon $1.8 billion for 10 per year for 10 years. But TNT has a clause in their contract that allows them to match the offer and retain the rights. Now, the problem here is that NBA is saying that purely matching the money isn't equal to the Amazon deal because Prime Video is more widely accessible than TNT, as it's only on cable. So a legal fight is now going to ensue over who gets those NBA rights. Now, the reason I bring this up is because Turner offering $1.8 billion a year for 10 years to retain the NBA rights.
$1.8 billion a year.
Yep.
A year?
A year.
That's a lot of money for basketball.
It's a lot of money.
Really? I wouldn't think it'd be worth anywhere near that.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, is it worth that much? Because there's no way that...
I don't think so.
There's very little chance that WBD, Warner Brothers Discovery, will recoup their losses just for paying that for the prestige of having the NBA on their channel or retaining them. So the point is that if they do get the NBA and they're paying, $18 billion over 10 years, where does this leave AEW? Because they're trying to negotiate a pay raise, of course, for the TV rights. But if Warner Brothers Discovery is putting every single penny they've got, and keep in mind they're losing money anyway, Warner Brothers Discovery, where does this leave AEW? Are they just going to forget about them because they can't afford another 125 million a year.
Hey, the TV thing, I can't speak with any knowledge on that, because it's baffling to me how they even scale that, how they even price it. 1.8 billion. That's 1,000. What is $1 billion? 1,000 million. It's not 800 million. It's double that. And 800 million would be, say, $1 billion for a year is how much a week per episode?
I don't know, 20 million a week.
God, I don't know. That's above my pay grade.
It's above pretty much everybody's pay grade, really, in that sense. Very quickly, my estimations, AEW are probably losing somewhere between $15 and $20 million a year. So if WBD can't afford them...
Wait a minute. How much are they losing?
Okay, right. So I did a calculation.
Okay, wait a minute. I don't know how you getting these figures.
Okay. For a video that I would probably never make or get around to making, sat down and worked out a very rough estimate of what they're taking in every month, every week, and what they're spending every week. And I got to the figure that they're probably losing about $15 to $20 million a year, not including tax write-offs and that kind of thing. So I'm figuring, I don't think they've ever made money, AEW.
So they're losing, how much are they losing a week?
Divide 20 million by 52.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know, 400,000 a week, maybe. Let's just say that.
God. People get into business to make money.
Most people do.
The spending money, what does it do? I don't get that. I need to call Tony Khan up and say, Tony, listen, I want to help you with booking, but don't ask me to go to the shows or anything. And you just call me up and I'll talk to you. I'll be a consultant that never comes in.
Or does any work.
And what would you charge me? Oh, I won't charge you much. $5,000 a week. That's it. Just give me that and I'll sit home. So because he is giving talent that much money not to show up.
$2 million a week. That's the talent budget, apparently. Or between 2 million and 2 point something million. So, yeah.
It just stuns me, really. I came along too late.
We're going to move on now. So Dustin Rhodes, you alluded to this earlier, complains on Twitter. Here is what he says. Please stop using the term jobber. It is extremely disrespectful to everyone who is putting their bodies on the line each week. All of us are enhancement talents. We enhance each other's careers. Show compassion to everyone that steps in this business and works hard enhancing others. # keep stepping. Where do you stand on this?
Show what? Compassion to wrestlers?
The term jobber.
Well, it is kind of degrading. I will say that. See, a jobber, anybody can be a jobber. Anybody. Even somebody who's never even had any wrestling experience. Put him in a ring to get slaughtered. I mean, that's the term of a jobber, really. A jobber doesn't really have much expertise or technique in the wrestling business. Anybody can do that. The enhancement talent, I first heard that word in WWE years and years ago. WWF, really. So I'm in agreement with him, because if you call on anybody just a jobber, see, we was talking about, say, Leo Burke. He never did anything worthy away from Canada, basically. So where he would be in that vernacular, you like that word, in those terms, he would be a jobber down south. He never really came south that I recall. And he'd be a big star in Canada. But calling him a jobber because he had technique. he was good in the ring, really good in the ring. But just calling him a jobber, yeah, a little derogatory. And yeah, I kind of agree with Dustin on this. So, I mean, I've heard people, he's just a jobber. I hate to hear that, because it's not only is you calling him a degrading name, your attitude almost means that you're dismissing him as having no talent whatsoever. So yeah, I think that term needs to go.
What would you replace that term with?
Bum. I would replace it with a Spanish word called habanero.
Habanero.
Habanero. That's what, but at least it sounds like something. But the enhancement talent, that has always sounded to me like it's almost highfalutin, too highfalutin for the role. But that's what it is. You enhance somebody else's their run. But I don't know what you would replace it with, to tell you the truth.
What was a carpenter then? Because it wasn't.
Carpenter is the same thing as if you want to really put them on levels, the jobber is like at the very bottom. And I say a carpenter, he's got to be better because he's helping build another guy's career, or he's extending the life of the angle. So he's actually adding a wing to it. So he can be, and that's the same thing as a jobber, but higher.
The competitive.
But a carpenter actually is better than being a jobber, in my estimation.
So we need to think of a new name then. Enhancements too grandiose.
Yeah. Yes.
I know you like that word. Jobbers too pejorative. So we need to come up with a different word for.
You didn't like Habero?
No, I quite like Habero, whatever that means. Perennial opener or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we have to think on that one.
Next, back to WWE Raw this Monday. Liv Morgan and the Gorgeous Girls promo. You watched it. What did you make?
I did. Loved that promo. I loved it. But they're walking a fine line here with this one. I think you have to be careful with that Liv Morgan, because that old dirty Dom stole my name. That dirty Dom and it damned, what's his girlfriend's name? Rhea Ripley. They might turn out to be the heels in this. Because if you say I'm a new fan and I'm tuning in and I'm watching Liv talk to Dom and he just cusses her out and she starts crying. Who do you feel sorry for? Because it feels like Rhea and Dominic are teaming up on her. So in just watching this interview, I'm not taking into account anything that's happened in the past, but I think that little Liv turned out to be the baby face in that. I mean, I felt for her more than I felt for Dom. And how many? And I like a love story like this, because I think Liv is having the run of her life, and I think that's going to continue. I mean, she's always been a good-looking girl, but they've never told the story about her like they're telling now, and she's getting over. And, Liv is so much bigger than, Rhea is so much bigger than Liv. So, and if Dom's at ringside with her, I mean, I would be pulling for little Liv. They got to watch it, because I think they kind of turned her right then. And I hope they kind of go with this direction a little more, because while it was designed to go the other way, I think now I don't know if they designed it this way, but I think Liv is crossing that threshold of being a baby face, and Dom and Rhea are crossing that line going back the other way. So this time, maybe what's a pay-per-view in 6 months? Name one. What's in the fall?
Oh, Survivor Series. That'll be an easy one.
I think by then, I think they may have switched.
I think it's going to be earlier. I think it's going to be at SummerSlam.
Okay, did you feel the same way when you watched that?
Well, Liv Morgan was always over with me. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I like her.
So I thought it was a great promo. I had it on silent.
I did too. But, you know, and he talked in Spanish to her, you know, and I could actually tell him, said, you ruin, I want you to, Cabeza's head, mind or something. What is in your head? I got that. And, you know, you've ruined my life. And Rhea was laughing and they were kind of abusing that girl. And when she started crying and walking back, you know, she had me then. And that was a great, great interview. And I would say it's of the 10 greatest interviews I've heard this year, that's one of them.
We were talking about injuries that turned out to be fortuitous. CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Rhea Ripley. She's more popular, apart from the fact that it gave space for Liv Morgan to sort of step into the women's main event fray and be in one of the most important, one of the most entertaining storyline arcs in WWE for a long time. It's one of those that sort of fits into that mold with Rhea now back. But, so they're going to be wrestling, we believe, at SummerSlam. Mm-hmm. Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley. Now, I don't know about you, but I was thinking they can't not turn Dominic heel and align with Liv. That's what I'm looking at. I'm thinking that's got to be the way they're going.
Well, Dominic just needs to stay in the same place with Rhea.
You think?
Yes,
I thought he'd join up with Liv.
I think they're fighting the crowd on that. I mean, they can do it that way. They're putting it together. But I think little Liv, she has the heart of the crowd after that interview. So, and if he turns on Liv, he is really going to have some heat, big time heat. So if it comes down between Rhea and Liv after the match is over, regardless of who wins, the real thing the people are going to remember is who he goes with. And I think that Rhea, I think she's a good heel anyway. And Dominic's a pretty good heel. So I don't know. That is one of the stories that I'm watching. And that's why I think people watch wrestling. They want to see where that goes. I do. See, I would like to say that, you know, when I say doors are open, the doors are open so much, the wind's blowing through. Bam, 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 bam. They got all kind of doors open, and they just got to pick one to go through. And guess what? If they pick the wrong one, my old saying, they got 51 more weeks of the year to fix it and go back the other way. But I think it's perfect for her to live. And I've seen double switches in a match before. I can't remember which match it was.
Austin and Brett, that's the most famous one, I think.
And they just turned it. I mean, the babyface went heel and the heel went babyface. So I would like to see it here, and I think it would do great for the story because the story is writing itself now. So here's the story looking at you in the face. All you got to do is write it down and perform it. And you got it. And I think after SummerSlam, that'd be maybe one of the matches people keep talking about.
You know, I've just realized something. You know, what? Dirty Dominic stole your name.
Yes, he stole my name.
You know he's stealing your mustache now.
He wishes. That bastard.
Give him 20, 30 more years, it'll kick in.
Well, he just don't have the, but he didn't have the mustache like this. He's trying to. Trying to is different than actually stealing it.
So, next on the agenda, Damian Priest gave a sort of, this is something else you sent me, in fact, gave a really weird sort of answer, a half answer.
Yes.
What was it? I don't know what he was getting at. Anyway,
He says he didn't kick out, but he says, believe me, and I told you this. From day one, they tell you in wrestling school, and I'm sure in NXT, if the referee hits 2, pay attention because you're kicking out. That's the finish. Always kick out at 2. What I hate so much is when they kick out at 2 9/10 because the referee's hand goes down, then it goes sideways. Mm-hmm. And then the guy gets up and that look on his face like, oh my God, I can't believe they kicked out. I mean, that's overused. But here is he 1, 2, and they screwed that up. But he wasn't knocked out as I first thought he was. But something else happened that he doesn't want to talk about. What do you think that could be?
I've got a feeling that it's what we suggested last week. It was a production error. The entrance music was meant to kick in earlier and interrupt the count, I guess. I think that I've got a feeling that was it.
He said there was another issue that he's not going to talk about.
Why don't I give you the full quote then? Priest told the New York Post recently that there was a situation that led to him not kicking out from Rollins' Falcon Arrow moments before Drew McIntyre arrived to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase. It says moments, a few seconds. He reportedly told the outlet that he didn't want to get into anything medical concerning what happened, saying it was personal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Medical, personal. I think he may have did a little poo-poo in his pants and threw him off, I guess. I don't know. Maybe he had diarrhea. Who knows? But he was trying to think, oh, my God, does it... And he wore dark clothing, right? Mm. So I'm thinking it was medical. So that releases the production truck. That releases them right there. So it was something else that he doesn't want to get into.
The idea that I forgot to go to the toilet. No, I'm sorry, it doesn't say that. It says, the idea that I forgot to kick out, that's not a thing, he said. That's not a thing. We don't forget to kick out. 20 years in, I'm pretty sure there is some kind of muscle memory there. So me forgetting was not the case. There was nothing outside that was supposed to... Right, okay, this is the other thing. There was nothing outside that was supposed to happen. It was a matter of there was a situation, but I'm okay. Everything's fine. The story continues. Yeah, we'll find the story continues, but... Like, okay, it could have only been one thing. 3 things. You forgot. You were knocked out. Production error where that was meant to interrupt the count. So just say one of those 3 things.
But he said medical.
But he's discounted all 3 of them. He said, what did he say? Well, he didn't forget to kick out.
Yeah, so that's gone.
It's, where was it about the production?
He said...
There was nothing outside that was supposed to happen. So that absolves that.
Yeah.
So then he was knocked out. I mean, he was looking at the entranceway, as was Seth Rollins, so... But apparently that's not the reason. It was something medical that he doesn't want to get into that made him not kick out.
Well, that he didn't want to get into. He's embarrassed by it too, right?
Maybe he did shit himself. Maybe that was it.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, it's happened before. And it's a bodily function. And... And that's why he doesn't want to get into it. So,
yeah, but every other wrestler talks about it. Never mind. Okay, we've got 2 more things. Well, one more news story and then something that you wanted to bring up at the end. So, before we get to the Dutch Mantell special at the end of this show, Jeff Jarrett says he's interested in buying TNA. On the latest episode of his podcast, My Will with Jeff Jarrett, the current AEW star responded to fan questions asking if he would consider making inquiries if TNA was ever on the market for sale. Like anything, here's the quote, anything in the wrestling business, I'm interested in that. And what are they valued at, Jarrett said. People get into these valuations, and I don't care what it is. You can come. We were just talking about this with AEW not too long ago. Someone valued them at $2 billion. It's like you can value anything at anything. Anyway, you can come up with all the valuations you want in the world. You've got to find a buyer, period, and then that buyer has to agree with the evaluation. He continued, other than that, it's great fodder, if you will. I'm not discounting tax situations and all that kind of stuff, but certainly I'd take a look at anything, and if Conrad says let's do it, I'd say let's do it. So apparently Conrad Thompson's involved in this somehow, but Jeff Jarrett rebuying TNA. That'd be in.
That ain't happening. Believe me. I think it's been more than 20, 3 years?
Well, TNA was 2002. When did he sell to Dixie? Was it almost straight away?
2014, wasn't it?
No,
Something
that's
like that.
that's when Dixie sold to Anthem in 2017. So Dixie and Panda Energy had a stake in the company from 2002 2003. So if we just call it over 20 years.
Okay, there's no doubt in my mind. Jeff, he loves the wrestling business. He loves the creative end of it. He likes working. He looks great. But I don't think he wants to do this. I don't think he wants to buy the company. I just don't. Because TNA, they're on a tier that they're not even equal to AEW at all. And I know they run their company, a lot cheaper than AEW runs it. But I don't think there's, but let me say this. Jeff might be interested. I think he's just talking. But if he did, he'd have to have a TV contract in mind. Already have it. That if he takes over, that TNA can go on this network. I don't think he has that. I don't think with two wrestling companies out there, I don't know how much interest they would be in a third wrestling company on TV. But I don't see him buying it. And you said that Conrad Thompson, Jeff mentioned him, so apparently he's in on the deal too. So, but we'll wait and see. But
You think TNA is even for sale? Because that was the theory.
No, it could be for sale if the deal was right. I don't even know what do you think TNA's worth?
Well, what do you think Ring of Honor was worth? I mean, that went for $4 million. Well, so Tony Khan says. It was rumored to be $40 million he paid for at one point, but then apparently it was more like $4 million. But Ring of Honor was dead in the water, and he bought it for $4 million. So TNA is not dead in the water. I mean, it's got more vibrancy than Ring of Honor had when that was sold. Yeah, so what could it be worth now? The tape library is worth something.
Yeah. What is that network they're on? Whatever they're on.
The Access or something. An Anthem own it.
Yeah, the library is worth some money, yes. But Access to sell that, I don't know. This is not my strong point.
That's fine. But why would you say that Jeff Jarrett wouldn't be interested in getting back into a booking ownership role? Do you think he's just too old now?
No, he's not too old. I don't think he wants to. You know how much you got to work when you have a company like that. Now Jeff likes to work. I'm not saying he doesn't, but it takes up a major part of your day every day of the year. So you don't really get any time off. And Jeff, he does like his spare time, but according to how much money he's making. So I'm not going to discount it, but I just don't see it right here at this point.
Okay, on that note, we're going to end the show with this. It was a question that wasn't sent to questionsfordutch@gmail.com, which is where you should be sending your questions, of course. But you got a question to you personally that you wanted to address. So, to Dutch and James. I'm sorry?
Go ahead. Read that.
Oh, so it's from Sean. Now I'm going to blow this surname. McAuliffe, I think. Sean McAuliffe, let's say.
Yeah.
From Abbeville, Alabama.
Yeah.
I've heard you being Dutch, talk about starting out in the wrestling business years ago. So who mentored you along the way or helped you navigate the business? Who were some of your mentors when you started? And we've read how much the business was so different years ago than you see today. When you started, how many companies were in business? Well, we know there were dozens. And how did you get into contact with them because there were no dirt sheets going back that far? Okay, so 2 questions there. Who were your mentors getting into the business?
Well, the guy who hired me when I started work in Atlanta a lifetime ago, he was the lead member of the infamous Assassins, the Masked Assassins team, Tom Ernesto. And he was the first guy that booked me. And so I may have told this story before, but I used to ride with him a lot. And the reason I would rode with him because we would take his car, and he had a big Cadillac, and I would drive the car, and he would sit over there and talk to me. But during those trips I called Wrestling 101 because I got more knowledge from that guy just riding with him and listening to him and listening to his stories than I could have got in a wrestling school in 2 years. So he would tell me to do this and don't do that. And he would tell me how the formula to put a match together. And he was good on storytelling too. So, and I was usually on first every night. So I would go out there. And what I would do, I would go out there and with this guy called Ted Oates, he's passed away now, great worker. But I would go out there with Ted Oates, and I'd always go a 15-minute Broadway, which meant time limit draw. But in those 15 minutes, I learned more with that guy, and he learned more with me. It was almost we were teaching each other the business at the same time, and neither one of us knew what we were doing. We just kept moving. And I'd get back in the car, and Tom he would pick the match apart, and we would go from there. So every guy I ever rode with became a mentor type. Like Ox Baker. That's where I got the mustache idea from. I used to ride with Ox, and he didn't have much of a formula, but he was entertaining as hell. So we would start out on a trip, and he'd go, and he'd do his mustache like this. And I was always in awe of his mustache. And you can see some pictures of him. You know, he had that big black mustache, and he was a hell of a heel. And like Skandor Akbar, I learned from him, riding up and down the road with him. So I would ride with all these different people. And they would not necessarily mentor me so much as I would just listen to them. And that was how I learned the business. See, back in those days when I started, they were like 30 companies. And I was so dumb. I didn't think there were any other companies out of the South. I knew that the Carolinas had a company there. Georgia had one because I'd worked in Florida. And then I found out Alabama had 2. I went, what? Alabama has 2 companies? I didn't know that. Then I found out Louisiana has 1. What? And Texas has 2 or maybe 3. I didn't know that. And then I found out Buffalo, New York had 1. And New York had 1. And all these companies in Minneapolis, they had a company. Chicago had a company. And Indiana, not India, I think it was Indiana. Dick the Bruiser, he had a company. Then you go up to Oregon, California had 2, and that's not even counting your Canadian territories. So anybody back in those days, if you could half-ass just work at all, you could really just pick up the phone and get booked somewhere. If that's all you want to do is work, didn't necessarily mean that you were going to make any kind of money, but you'd make a living and you get to travel around. And that's what we all did years and years and years ago. So, we were talking about journeyman moving around. That's what we did. So, and the question is, he said, did he say, how did you get in touch with these companies? Did he?
Yeah, I imagine you just recommended, weren't you, from one promoter to another?
It was just word of mouth. And you'd get the number from them. This was before the internet. This is before the Dave Meltzers. This was before way, way back. So you get the number to the office and you call up and you talk to a guy and he'd say, and we didn't have anything called like videotape. We didn't have that. That's too damn highfalutin. I mean, that was too high class for us. You just send some pictures, stock pictures, and the guy would either book you or he wouldn't book you.
That's a good question, actually. So, like in today, is the different forms in different decades. So today you can just forward to some indie promoter a link to a show reel or a match or whatever. Earlier days, you could send in a videotape and some 8x10s.
Mm-hmm.
When you broke into the business in the 70s, did you send in, for the most part, anything? Or was it only word of mouth and someone vouching for you?
You sent in 8x10s.
Yeah. So you actually would introduce yourself. Would you have like a cover letter or something, who you were, that kind of thing?
Yeah, you'd have a cover letter and say, I'm interested in, my name is this, and you give your physical stats and how long you've been in the business and where you've been working, and if you have any references, like anything else, and you're interested in, you could, if the guy could use you, you appreciate a call back from him. You give him your number and you go from there. And sometimes you get a call back, sometimes you wouldn't. But your picture stayed there the whole time. So who knows? Somebody gets hurt, or one of the underneath guys, you need somebody, and the guy looks over, no, he just sees your picture. Well, I'll call this guy. A lot of guys got booked that way. But you got to make yourself available first. Then you got to, the guy would call you up and then y'all would work out a deal. And see, if you were unproven, you didn't get anything like a guarantee that you were going to make X number of dollars. But the understanding was you had to make enough to make a living. You couldn't stay. You'd have to go somewhere else or get a job. And since I had a job aversion, I didn't want to get a job. So I just stayed with it. But it was a totally, totally different business. Believe me, totally different.
I don't think I've ever asked you this. So we've talked about briefly the very first time you got into wrestling, not, with Ted Oates and Georgia and that thing. Before you got into the army, before you were drafted, you did a few indie shows here and there. And I think it was your older brother who got you into wrestling. So we established it was around 68, 69, something like that. How did you get your very, very first gig? Was it through your brother? And how did your brother get that gig to get you on the card?
Okay, I was working, this before I went into the army, and I was working on these cards with a friend of my brother, and his name was Doug, a big guy. He was about 6'7", about 400. So he actually started working in Georgia because he was from Georgia. And he started working there before I did. So when I got out of the army, Doug, and I'd only had, I don't know, 5 or 8, no more, matches. And he wanted to know, would I be interested in coming over there to Georgia? I was in the Carolinas and starting work with his company. And I said, well, I guess. So he set up a meeting with the booker of the territory at that time, Tom Ernesto, who became one of my mentors, and walked in the office, and he never saw me work, never. And he hired me on the spot. And he said, all right. But the first time they tried me out, I think they gave me like a tryout spot, and it was in way as far south as you could go in Georgia. I think it was Waycross, Georgia. I think. And he sent me, I mean, it was on the ocean, I remember. And he sent me down there, and it was like July. And I had, this is probably 71, 72, no, about 72, early, and summertime too, maybe, yeah, 72. And I rode down there in that southern heat for 4 hours, and it was like 100 degrees outside that day. I like to have died on that trip. And got down there and then had a match. And then he called me up. He said, they said you worked okay. And he said, then he gave me so you start Monday or the next Monday. And they used to have like, regular towns, like, Monday was Augusta, and Columbus was Wednesday, and Atlanta was Friday. And then they had Carrollton, Georgia and these were small towns. I mean, Augusta had a pretty big building. Columbus had a pretty big building. And you would make these towns every week. So, and that's how I broke into the business.
One last question to end it on, then we'll shut down this podcast, is, I don't think I've ever asked you this either. What was the first show that you booked or co-booked, or at least gave ideas for the booking?
I'd have to think about that.
Do you remember the territory?
Well, I'm sure it was Tennessee, because anybody can have an idea about what to do next. Sometimes you just go to the booker and said, hey, where are we going with this? Or what kind of idea do you have? And he said, well, I was going to talk to you about, that's the time to throw your idea at him. And I wouldn't suggest for anybody just to go start throwing ideas at something you saw on Raw or something you saw on SmackDown. But it has to make sense and not be too extreme. Or back in those days, you couldn't be too extreme. Now you can. But I think it was the Randy Savage angle that I worked in Tennessee. We were both heels. I've told you this before.
This is the Goulas.
Yeah, this was with Goulas. And he told me, he said, listen, we're both heels. We're going nowhere, because we had no baby faces to work with. He said, why don't you turn babyface and I'll work with you? I said, no, why don't you turn babyface and I'll work with you? He said, no. He said, I'm not good at a baby. I don't want to be a babyface. I said, okay. So I turned, and the whole summer I went with Randy, and business improved like more than 100%. It improved 150%. Because the first time I went to Nashville, it was some little fairground building. I doubt if they had 200 people in there. And it would only seat maybe 800. But by the time we went by a month, we had 800 people in that building.
Okay, but so one of you suggested you go babyface, essentially.
Yeah, uh-huh.
But that's a suggestion to turn you. What was the first angle you actually booked that was yours then? So did you start actually booking your own storylines with Randy at that point?
Well, I helped out quite a bit. The first time I really booked was in Puerto Rico. Everything was mine.
Well, you did it in Florida beforehand, I know that. And
I did do it in Florida too. Excuse me.
So who vouched for you as a booker then?
Who's this?
Who vouched for you to take the book then?
Jerry Jarrett.
So he said, you must have given enough suggestions to convince him that you'd be good at it.
I did. I hope I did. Well, I used to ride with him too. We would ride to Memphis, and he would say, what would you do? And he used to ride with Lawler. Lawler said, what would you do here? And I throw an idea at him, and he'd either take it or reject it, but without any animosity. He said, I don't think that to be the right thing. We were just talking about it. And Jerry Jarrett, I do the same thing on some of those long trips. And he gave me the philosophy. So did Jerry Lawler. Gave me the philosophy of basic booking. Excuse me. And that's how I learned it. And Jerry Jarrett taught me to tell the story. He was the first one to tell me, you got to tell a story and make everything personal. He said, what you want to do as a babyface is you want to bring those fans with you. So if the fans put themselves in your place, how would they feel? And that's when you get the emotion. And I took that to Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, I worked some angles. Those people are very hot-tempered and emotional to begin with. That's what they are. I would have them crying in the crowd because I would take a guy and I would beat him half the way to Christmas. And he'd be bloody and nobody would help him and the people crying, help, help, help. But you got to watch that because that's what they call white heat. And if you get that white heat too much, it's very dangerous heat. There's a difference between heat and white heat. When they kind of get quiet and they're looking at you, they're thinking about killing you. Mm-hmm. And so you want to get out of there before it gets to that point. But that's a little bit of a thing I learned a long time ago. I was in Augusta and Tom Ernesto. He said, you hear those people? And I went, they're not doing nothing. He said, exactly. You know what that's called, kid? I said, what? White heat. Those heels should be here right now and they come in the door. Because you get away from them. It's called white heat. It's hotter than this regular heat. But I didn't, and I would have no idea what he was talking about unless he was pointing it out to me right then. And still, I can tell you about it, but you still don't really know what it is. It's just a term, and I've never heard the term, but a couple of times in wrestling, white heat, that's when the fans are hotter than hot. They're right before they're going to jump in the ring. So you got to get out of there before they reach that point. But see, people ask me, how do I become a booker? And I said, oh, God, you don't want to be a booker. Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Because everybody can have a good idea. But when you start taking those ideas and you're a booker for a territory, you don't have that now. You have creative teams. But you got to have these ideas all through the year. You got to have it 52 times a year and keep that machine rolling, because when that machine breaks, the fans don't come for a week, 3 weeks, then you're losing money because you can't pay people, not on those small houses. You really can't pay people enough to stay. Now, Tony Khan can, because he's a billionaire. He can do that. So, and I hope he's paying those guys a lot of money.
He is.
But he is also, and he's been described as he wants to play real life chess. That's what he's doing. So, and he just loves the business so much, but he can do that because his family can afford it. So, and Jeff, if he called me up today, Jeff Jarrett, we were talking about him buying TNA. He knows what he wants to do anyway. But I would say, man, remember last time, what happened last time? Because that machine can break at any time. Just because you got a TV contract don't mean you're going to have it next year. So you got to keep that you got it. The wrestling machine keeps eating. You can't fatten it up because it's going to keep eating more and more and more and more. You remember you talking about the WCW years,
mm-hmm.
And then they had all these great years, and all of a sudden, what happened? What happened? Why'd you stop watching it?
Oh, they went, okay. There's a number of reasons.
They started repeating, or what?
Yeah, that's maybe one of the first reasons, that they set into creative bankruptcy, and they had the same finish pretty much every single week on Nitro, is that the NWO would run in, and then the NWO would run in the next week. Very occasionally, the baby faces would stand tall at the end, but there's so much NWO. Creative bankruptcy set in first. Then just the nonsensical stuff started setting in, the unsatisfying stuff, and then very quick, and then the visual stuff where they changed all the sets and it looked so ugly. And then it became a presentational issue, and then just everything compounded between the end of 98 and the end of 99. There was such a stark difference with the product. It didn't resemble what it was a year earlier, and they managed to kill off basically the drawing power of every single person who was drawing like crazy just 12 months earlier. A downfall in wrestling has never been seen like that.
Well, it can happen, believe me, because I've been in territories before, and all of a sudden it's going great. You lose one guy, you lose two guys, you're done for a while. You got to rebuild. When I took over Florida, Dusty was the booker. He went to the Carolinas. He took everybody who was anybody, which is himself, basically. He was the top draw in Florida. And when he removed himself, he took Magnum TA with him. He took Barry Windham with him. He took one of the Russians with him. So he pulled out everything that he'd been drawing with, and he took it all to Charlotte. And when I got there, I looked out there and I said, damn, what happened? Because I was going to have to rebuild the whole crew. And I went in there about, I don't know, September. And it took me to Christmas to get it halfway up and running. And then I had Flair a couple of shots. I brought him in. And Michael Hayes come in, so I had the Freebirds. Now we're starting to build a little bit, rebuild. And finally I had it up, and I remember my last house there before I gave my notice was Orlando, and it didn't sell out. Orlando was a big building, but it was like an old farm building, but it was a big building. So we probably had 1,500 people in there, I guess. Then the unthinkable happened. Eddie Graham killed himself. And from that point on, I just couldn't continue there anymore. I said, no, I was stressed out. And then Eddie, he became a mentor when I was there. He owned part of the territory. So when Eddie took his life, I was done. I was gone out of there in about 10 days.
On that sad note, we need to do more on Eddie Graham at some point, because I know we've talked about Eddie in your booking time there, but we should talk more about Eddie on a future episode as well. It was nice, actually, really, to do a full episode. I mean, the last 20 minutes or so has been not about the news and just about, the old days and stuff. And I think we should do that probably a bit more, actually. But It's funny how we were just talking about creative bankruptcy. And it happens to me. I know this isn't anything similar, but I make a lot of these shows and podcasts and stuff every single week. And it's weirdly the same thing. It's not that I'm losing enthusiasm. It's that I get creative bankruptcy. And sometimes, even with this show, I have sat there and stared at maybe not a blank piece of paper, but I just think, how can we get this to 2 hours? And then, but the thing is that, as you say, the TV machine's never full. So is the podcast machine, the internet machine, that kind of thing.
It's the same thing. It keeps you got to keep feeding this thing.
Yeah.
It's like, when you sit around and you listen to me talk, and I talk so much, sometimes I tell a story twice, except if I know I tell the story twice, I try to lie on the second, the second telling, so to change it up. But yeah, there's only so many things that can happen. But I've been in this business, I think, 72 to now. How much is that? I got in 72. How many years? 51?
52 years.
52 years I've been in it. But the last 10 years, I've been more or less out of it. But
they just keep pulling you back in.
Oh, yeah. And somebody asked me, would you like to be a booker again? Not no, but hell no. Because I don't have like you're talking about, I don't have the attention or the energy, the creative energy to do it anymore. And it wears you out. That's why you got to keep changing creative teams. You got to keep changing bookers. I don't think we'll see a change in WWE for a while, because he's got a creative team and he just But he's done, I mean, Triple H has done such a good job. The creative team has done such a good job. It would run on its own for like 3 or 4 months, just what they got right now, before they could tell a difference. And you say, no, I think you could tell a difference. Well, you could, but when you're creative, when your head hits that vacuum, there's nothing coming out. That's when it's time to take a step back and let somebody else do it for a while.
Well, I'm not letting anyone else do this for a while yet, so creative bankruptcy or not, I'm here for a while. Anyway, thank you everybody so much for watching. We're going to close down the show now. So we will see you again on Tuesday for Ask Dutch Anything. Once again, you can join us on the Facebook thing. The link's in the description. Stevie Richards show, we're out every single Friday later than Dutch as well, so you can spend the entire day with me if you're a real glutton for punishment. But until then, Dutch and everybody, we will see you again on Tuesday. We the people.
We the people.